that I think is good for females is because, or women athletes, is because typically women, especially younger women, and that are attractive, have more followers than the average male. You have position groups that can make $50,000 a year from a nonprofit organization. What nonprofit has that much money to just give out to college athletes?
Well,
All right, so our next story, we're talking about Coach Prime again. My man, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, Jackson State. He was on an interview with Earn Your Leisure, who right now I listen to that podcast
I do
and their
too.
products all the time. And he was on a interview with them, and he was talking about the NIL and how he agrees with it, but the way that things are handled right now is not good for the game or good for college sports in general. So again, let's talk about what the NIL is first and foremost. Give you some background on that, and then we can get into the comments that Dion made in this interview, and then in some articles that he was a part of, or his Twitter post. I'm sorry, his Twitter post from back in May. So the NIL is short for name, image, and likeness, which it was a rule that was passed a year ago, as of July 21st, that allowed college athletes to get compensated for their name, image, and likeness. Before that, they could not profit off of their name, image, and likeness whatsoever. The only thing that they received for being student athletes at these respective universities was their scholarship, a stipend, and room and board. But with this rule that passed, they can now profit off of promotional endeavors such as endorsements, product endorsements, autograph signings, social media posts, and more. That and more is the gray area, but they can now profit off of their name. And then another thing to keep in mind with this as well, and this is the part that Coach Sanders and some other coaches, but we just know Coach Sanders has come out against this, is universities can't directly pay athletes.
Exactly.
It can only be like from brands or other individuals, other parties that are trying to promote products. Six. You saw the interview.
I did.
What were your thoughts on Coach Prime's comments? You want me to read some of the comments or?
Well, so the one comment that I really put in here is that Coach Prime said it was really just a bunch of handsomely compensated boosters putting money in the pot that they're giving to the athletic department and telling the coach, hey, distribute this how you want to distribute it. You know what I'm saying? But the issue that he had with it is that where do you see these players doing anything other than playing ball?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But the issue is that they have to be just like you said, actually have to be endorsing something from a company endorsing something so that way they can profit off of their name, image, and likeness. But just like you said, they can't directly pay the students, but the coach is at some point taking that money that's in that pot and say, all right, cool, quarterback from Alabama, I give you $500K type. You know what I'm saying? Or I get this guy $1 million. I get, do something like that. But it's like you don't see these guys doing anything. The two players that he named was a quarterback from Alabama. I don't know why his name
Bryce
is
Young.
Bryce Young. There you go. And then his son Shador, that has a bunch of different sponsors actually, but nobody else is really endorsing anything to be able to profit from their name, image, and likeness. So like, how are they able to get compensated? You know what I'm saying? So it's just. You go ahead and go into it because you got a little bit more information than me. I just
I dove all the way in.
You dove all the way in,
yeah. Because both of us play collegiate sports. I also briefly coached collegiate sports, not as an actual coach, but I was a graduate assistant. I was a part of that atmosphere, a part of that industry for a while. So I completely get it. That to me and to a bunch, players need to be compensated for their part in collegiate sports. Coach Prom says that in his current form, he is for players getting paid. All right.
Right.
But he said in its current form, just as you mentioned, there are some parties that are some boosters in these bigger schools that are pooling money together. They're actually called booster collectives,
Mm-hmm.
pooling money together and allowing these coaches to divvy out the money. Now, this is the thing that this is the problem that he has, because in recruiting, these bigger schools that have these pot of money, they can then say, all right, this is the money that we have. You want this player, go get him and pay him this much. And it's not actually the player going to the school because they want to go to that school, and then they just happen to have an endorsement for a major brand. And
Mm-hmm.
it's more athletes that have endorsements than we think, but
100%.
there are some endorsements, quote unquote, that is like, what the hell is this? Um,
Facts.
so Bryce Young, he has. Let me pull it up. Bryce Young, he has endorsement deals from Cash App. He
Okay.
also has trading card companies like Leaf, Wildcard, and Onyx, and that
Okay.
is accumulated to be over, or assumed to be over, $800,000 in profit for him.
Okay.
The highest paid female athlete, and I think this is going to be good. This name, image, and likeness, especially how we think of brands and products wanting the most eyes on their products as possible. I think
Mm-hmm.
for women athletes, and I hope this is not taken the wrong way, but I think for women athletes, especially if they are attractive, this is going to be a great law for them, a great
I
rule for
agree.
them.
I
But
agree.
Olivia Dunn, who's a gymnast from LSU, she
Mm-hmm.
makes over $1 million from one brand. It's an active wear brand, and I'm sure I'm gonna mess this name up, but it's called Vuori,
I never heard of it.
Vuory. Me either. Never heard of it. But she has over 8 million followers on both Instagram, together, cumulative, on Instagram and TikTok.
Okay.
8 million followers she has. So they signed her to over $1 million contract with them,
Mm-hmm.
endorsement deal. So she just posts information. She just makes posts on her social media sites, and she gets paid for that. Another person that we'll talk about him later on
Mm-hmm.
that is benefiting from this is Mikey
Mikey
Williams,
Williams. Yep.
who is not even a college athlete yet, but he
Mm-hmm.
just penned a 8-figure deal with Puma.
Mm-hmm.
So
I didn't get the figures, but I do know it was with definitely with Puma for sure.
yeah, so it's
Yep.
an 8-figure deal that he has with Puma, and so Coach Prime doesn't have any issues with those type of endorsements.
Mm-hmm.
The issues that I think he may have a problem with are these type of endorsements, and I'm not going to name the schools, but you have schools um, that have deals for the whole football team to be paid $500 a month, and then some pools of money that is along with that payment that they can divvy out to recruits.
Mm-hmm.
You have position groups that can make $50,000 a year from a nonprofit organization. What nonprofit has that much money to just give out to college athletes?
Well, we just did it.
Just to be giving it out. They
Well,
typically,
true, but
nonprofits
see,
say,
but in the sense of that, you know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna play devil's advocate for a second.
yeah,
In
okay,
the
I'm
sense of
glad.
that, in the sense of that, you do have some of these nonprofit organizations because nonprofit means
Non for
nonprofit.
profit,
So
right?
you have to what all the money that you bring in as far as revenue has to go back out.
Exactly,
So even if a small nonprofit organization makes 50,000 in a year, that 50,000 has to go somewhere. So that
exactly.
small nonprofit can give that money to NCCU and say,
hmm
"Hey, take this 50K and divvy it." You know what I'm
So let me
saying?
ask you this, Sticks. With what we know about most nonprofits, they can just give out $1.5 million a year.
No. No, 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 no,
Exactly.
no, no,
That's
no,
what
no,
I'm
no, no, no,
saying.
no. Hell
That's what
no.
I'm saying to you. That
Yeah.
makes you scratch your head.
Nah, facts.
So it's like, okay, you telling me this nonprofit is just going to give offensive linemen, which is the position group,
Mm-hmm.
a $1.5 million a year just because they want an endorsement for what? I didn't. Now I guess I should have dug a little bit deeper into that,
To what the endorsement
but
is. Mm-hmm.
what the endorsement is, but I just saw that and ran with it. That's, to
Do
me,
you
is
know
like,
who the nonprofit is?
that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
Yeah,
got
that's
you.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, because then we could have probably made a little bit more of a,
Right.
had a thought
Educated.
process
Yes.
as to what the endorsement was about. But needless to say, there's not a lot unless you BLM that's just randomly spending $10 million in fucking real estate. But
Oh,
there's not a
yeah.
lot of there's not a lot of nonprofit organizations that have just 1.5 mil that they can just
Just to
throw out
give
for a
out,
year. No,
right?
they just
And
that's
that's
not all
what
of the
I'm saying,
nonprofits.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's where I was going with that. Now I'm sure if that's their business, nonprofit, that's what they want to do. That's what they want to do, and if that is legit, then it is legit. But to
Mm-hmm.
me, if I'm coaches like Coach Prime, I'm like, that's
Don't make no sense.
strange.
It's very strange.
Um, so that and it just that's the issue that he has is that these Power Five schools, once again, we talked about this 2 weeks ago
Mm-hmm.
as well, that they have this money that they can throw around to one win recruits, and then two pay athletes to stay because now the transfer portal is something major too. Players
Crazy.
are not happy at a situation or they're getting chirped at in their ear from another organization, which is illegal, but I'm sure it happens.
Mm-hmm.
On the side, they can now go to these programs. And as we know, winning games brings in more money for not only you but your conference. And if your
Mm-hmm.
conference is happy with you, SEC, Big Ten, you get all of these major contract television contracts, which brings in more money for you. So
Exactly. And but another thing that he had a problem with too was you see all of these again Power Fives having all of this money that they can just all of these well compensated boosters put money in this pot, but then what's good with the little guys? Basically, the
mhm,
HBCUs. They don't
right,
have a lot of boosters that are well compensated to put all this money in the pot. He goes on to say that less than 10% of actual boosters and alums pour back into their schools at these smaller schools.
yeah,
I'm an alum of NCCU. I haven't poured any money back into that university, which
yeah,
I don't I kind of feel bad about, but not really because it's like I ain't got it, my boy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right,
I'm still trying to make, I'm still on the rise in my own life. So it's like,
right,
I don't really have much to pour back into you. I want to, but
right,
it's like, if I was one of these well compensated people, I would, go to the university and say, hey, what do y'all need? I don't think I would throw money into a pot. I would just, I'm gonna, fix the stadium, or I'm gonna get y'all some uniforms, or I'm gonna fix the locker room or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But it's like the little guys are also one of these people who is like he's a big advocate for the smaller schools,
hmm,
and it wants it to be. He knows it can't be equal, but he wants it to be a better situation for HBCUs and smaller schools as well. So it's like he the HBCUs are the guys who are really getting the shaft on this because they don't have the money or the people who are going to pour back into them to get compensated for their name, image, and likeness because they just don't have the bread.
right,
And it goes back to is if we also don't have the boosters and the people to pour back into the university to make this name, image, like this thing a good thing for the HBCUs. But it also goes back again to these Power Fives beating up on these schools and still giving them pennies.
mm,
So that makes it a big situation too, because put the money into a pot, let it be divvied up, just like it's happening for these bigger schools. So
yeah.
yeah, man.
Well, I mean, if you don't have boosters that are doing that or have the ability to do that, again, we'll say this again because last week or 2 weeks ago I said the same thing. It's not
Mm-hmm.
all HBCUs. You have your Howards, you have
Mm-hmm.
your NCANTs, you have your Centrals of the world, your Morehouses, your Spelmans. You have those type of schools that have alumni that have gone on to make a pretty good amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about those schools, but the smaller schools, smaller HBCUs that don't have that. Where does this money come from to divvy up to put into a pot that you mentioned of?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it in the smaller schools, it's harder for them to get that pot
Mm,
big enough for them to actually compensate these players.
yeah.
Um, a lot of this, to me, a lot of the pot is going to have to come from these larger schools helping
Hmm.
these smaller schools, but that's never going to happen because
Yeah.
it's I used 2 weeks ago. I used the term power struggle, which after talking to you about it 2 weeks ago, I don't think it is a power struggle, but they're going to keep that money in their own organization to pay their own students and
Hmm.
to help their own university. They don't have much of a reason in these money games to pay the HBCUs or the smaller schools any more money than they already are. It's going to have to come from us taking that power and having
Hmm.
somebody speak up about it like Prime is doing and getting people on a collective journey to actually help these smaller schools. That's what it's going to have to
For
take.
sure.
And until that happens, it's always going to be uneven. It's going to be unbalanced on both sides, bro. It's always going to be that way.
For sure. And so um, later in that interview, I'm sorry, not later in that interview, a month ago, a couple months ago, Coach Prime put out a Twitter post, and he said many things in the Twitter post, but one of the things that I took away from it is he said, "No, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." He did say this in the interview with EYL. He said they asked him, "Should college athletes be paid?" He said, "Absolutely." But the thing
Absolutely.
is, when you start paying athletes like they're professionals, you get athletes acting like they're professionals, which it resonated with me because we talked about briefly. I mentioned Mikey signing that 8-figure deal, and this is
Mm-hmm.
not to single him out, but being that he is one of the first high school athletes to get a contract like this from a major brand,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of puts the spotlight on him as as to say, okay, so now you got this money. How do you act? And we've seen it with him. I don't know if it's a little bit of jealousy or hate or just people trying to bring him back down to earth or whatever the case may be. But supposedly now he's overrated.
Right, and it's crazy because like I've been watching Mikey Williams since he was a freshman because he's been all over the place. He's an amazing basketball player,
Hmm.
and the way he carries himself very well, even with this whole situation with the signing with Puma and being able to profit off of his NIL. So
Right.
it's like, but I think it's a lot of hate. I don't think he's overrated at all. But it's one of those things where it's like you get people from his peer group that feel like they're just as good,
Hmm.
and they're like, "Well, why Mikey? Why not
Right.
me?" It's a why not me. The younger generation is so privileged, bro. Like if
Hmm.
we had something like this back in the day, I don't think we would act the way they act. Just to be honest,
Right.
but that's just my opinion. We
Right.
can't really say because we didn't have it.
We didn't have it right.
But it's like the kid is a star. He's honestly a star, and he has a lot. He has a voice in the community. He has a very big social media following.
Hmm.
So that's one of the main reasons why Puma gave him his endorsements, because it's about future campaigns and product launches that he can actually, just like old girl, the college, the girl that you said was the highest paid college. What you say her name
Exactly.
was?
Yeah. Olivia
She's
Dunn.
Olivia Dunn, just like Olivia Dunn. She can do product launches because she has such a huge following on social media. That's the same thought process that the company has for Mikey, is to be able to use his name, image, and likeness to help Puma with future launches. So it's a good thing for Mikey, man. Big ups to him because he's handling it very, very, very well, man. I watched the Hot 97 interview with him last night, man, and he's a very well spoken and very grounded and humble young man, man. I fucks with Mikey for real.
Yeah, absolutely. And I watched that interview as well as the interview that he did with I Am Athlete, where
Mm-hmm.
he says that hating on him right now is a trend. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm the opposite of you. I don't really keep up with a lot of high school athletes.
I
It's
don't
just
either. He's just one of the ones that I do keep up with,
Yeah,
honestly.
I mean, but it's just not my thing. I know a lot of people really get into that, and I guess when
Mm-hmm.
I was a coach, a graduate assistant, I was into recruiting and keeping up on, but that was my job,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had to do it. Keeping up with football players, but I can honestly look at him and listen to him talk, and he does carry himself well. He does seem to be humble. The money doesn't has not seemed to change him
Mm-hmm.
that we know of. So I just feel like leading into the next part of what Coach Prom said in this piece is that he needs to continue to have people around him that helps him with this money and helps him
Mm-hmm.
control the mental aspect of it. And so
Mm-hmm.
Coach Prime said in that same quote, he said that the NCAA needs to allow programs to have qualified individuals to help them with these athletes that are making this money now. And he didn't really go into any dynamics of what that was, but what I took away from reading between the lines is that they need to have people that help these young men learn how to manage this amount of money that they're now getting, learn how
Mm-hmm.
to manage their family and their friends, also learn how to manage their mental aspect of it and how to be professionals as
Right.
well as because you know when you get that amount of money and at a young age or whenever you get it, whenever you get any amount of money, you have people around you that are trying to leech off of what you are, what you now came into. You have
Right.
family members that are trying to say, you remember what I did for you back in the day, let me get
Bruh.
this, let me get that. You
Mm-hmm.
have that. You have let's in college, not everybody's getting paid, so you have athletes that will be jealous of you because you made this amount of money, you have this amount of money, and make you feel less than you are, when really, your hard work just got you to be in the position to profit off of your name. So what Coach Prime was saying, and as a collective, is they need to have qualified individuals to help these athletes handle all of that as a whole, not
Mm-hmm.
just the money, but their mental, how to handle the money, and then how to handle the relationships that they have
Mm-hmm.
had in the past, that they have currently, and that they will have in the future because of what they now have um, signed to their name,
Financially,
which is that
yep.
money. Yep.
Exactly. Because it's crazy because that actually happened to me. My dad was one of those people
Mm-hmm.
that whenever he found out that I was down in Miami
Mm-hmm.
with the Dolphins, he called my grandma immediately and was like, "Yo, tell Charles I want to talk to him." No, bro.
And when had he
Like, come
talked to
on,
you
bro.
before that?
Bruh, I've talked this just to be personal because I don't really care. In my entire life, I talked to my dad 3 times in my entire life. Prior to
Yeah,
that, prior to that, three
that's
times,
crazy.
and he finds out that I'm down in Miami, hopefully about to start my professional career, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden now he wants to hit up Grandma Bert, like, "Hey, tell Charles to give me a call." No, my boy, nah, not that I got this status, so to speak, and I'm embarking on something professionally. Now all of a sudden you want to be no, bro. We cool, my
Yeah,
boy.
I'm
We
cool
cool, my
on
boy.
that.
I'm cool on that. I ain't got time for it, but I'm glad that I think that's something that's going to eventually happen. What Prime was talking about is that they're going to have at least try to hire some financial advisors to help these young men manage their money, invest their money, manage the relationship, so that way they can be smarter with the way that they spend it or what they do
Mm-hmm.
with it. Because somebody like myself, I'm finally at 37 starting to realize that I need somebody to help me, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to be less prideful and asking somebody for help.
Right.
So with these kids who are getting, like you said, Mikey got an 8-figure contract.
Eight
He's
figures, bro.
17 years old with an 8-figure contract. He has to have somebody to help him spend that money or manage that bread and manage the relationships. Because if you don't, he can get sidetracked with a lot of shit. So
Right.
not to say because he's a very mature young man. So not to say that he's impressionable enough to fall into those traps with the people in his life and those relationships,
Mm-hmm.
but being 17, you're not grown up enough to say that I will help this person. I have this
Right.
bread. I'm going to help you. I will do this for you. And people will take advantage. People will
Right.
take advantage. So he has to have those people on his side to help him with that. So hopefully he does, because that's a lot, bro. It's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, we look at professional athletes that come from, well, I don't know, I'm not going to say I don't know his personal situation, but
Mm-hmm.
let's just say the average situation of professional athletes coming up was not the best of situations for
Right.
most of them.
For
And so
most
if
of
we
them,
look
right.
at those typical athletes that come into large amounts of monies that are 4 years removed from Mikey's age, in 4 years into the future, so age 22 that
Mm-hmm.
Mikey is right now, they fudge up money in decisions and relationships all the time.
All
So
the time.
we're now saying that 18 to 22 years old, these individuals can have this type of money, and expect them to know what to do with it, how to handle these situations, how to handle relationships that they've had. No, we need some individuals in place to help them learn how to do this, to help them know, all right, you got a 8-figure deal, put 20% of that, which if he got the bare minimum $10 million, put $2
Mm-hmm.
million into whatever financial instrument that you can at
Mm-hmm.
18. And when
At
you turn
18,
30 something, if everything continues to go up like it has been, you, your family, like we talked about Steph last year,
like
him and
Steph,
Steph's boat,
exactly.
but your family is straight. Then you can say, all right, listen, I have this amount of money. What you got to say?
No, it's funny you say that because on that I Am Athlete podcast, he said by the time he's 25, he wants to be a
To be a
billionaire.
billionaire.
By
You
the
know what I
time
mean?
he's 25, that's 8 years from now.
And
So
that's a
it's funny
good,
you said it about Steph. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
That you brought that up.
that's a good mindset for him to have. And yeah, in that same podcast, Brandon Marshall was like, "Yo, we wasn't thinking like this," and
Boom,
that's
thinking
true.
like
We
this.
we were not, because we were not put in these situations. We didn't
Nope,
have anybody in our ear telling us about this type of stuff. So
we
I
weren't,
commend
man.
Mikey for that, and I think the NIL deal, it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely going to get tweaked a bit here and there for the next 2 years, but I think it's definitely needed for college athletes to be able to profit off of their name, image, and likeness. Because you
Mm-hmm.
think of individuals like a destroying, I can't, I don't know his real name, but he was the kicker for
Oh,
UCF
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
on YouTube. He
yeah.
was on
Mm-hmm.
also on YouTube, and he was monetized at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the NCAA found out about it and said he could not do that, so he quit
Mm-hmm.
playing football so he could
To
continue to monetize off of YouTube. Which,
mm-hmm.
why would you put a kid in that situation? It's not like he actually did this himself. Like, he didn't ask anybody to do this, and we all know we're on YouTube right now. We're
Mm-hmm.
trying to make money off of it.
Right.
Shit's not easy.
It's not easy at all, bro. And the
And
fact that he did that and made his way to the top is because Destroyer has like 10 million subscribers, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere close to
exactly,
it. He's
yeah,
doing his thing. And I understand why he left college to take, because
exactly.
people with that many followers make a lot of money. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I think now that this NIL deal is this NIL rule is in place, you
Mm-hmm.
won't have that issue anymore of him not be, or players like him not being able to take advantage of their name, image, and likeness, or something of the sort that they have done outside of football to make
Mm-hmm.
money. And you just think about, and the reason I said that I think is good for females is because, or women athletes, is because typically women, especially younger women, and that are attractive, have more followers than the average male.
Agreed.
You can look at um, Bryce Young. I don't know his actual follower count on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram or TikTok, but I'm sure it's not near this Olivia Dunn that we were talking about, who has 8 million across
Again.
both platforms. And
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Young he won the Heisman last year. He's a pretty
Exactly.
big he's a pretty big football player. He
Mm-hmm.
got injured this weekend, but he's a pretty big football player. So,
Right.
and like we mentioned, brands want eyes on their product. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have that many followers, and then you also are promoting a brand, you just do the math. The numbers trickle down to, if she has 8 million followers, they probably can expect at least 20,000 people
At
to
least.
at
At
least
least.
purchase that product. That's a bump, and that's a tick on the scale for them, on their payment scale. All right, and then you just think about all the athletes back in our day,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit removed from us, but that's all I can remember. Skylar Diggins, if she had this in her, if she had the ability to take advantage of the NIL, the
Yeah, right.
Gonzalez twins, Candace Parker. I'm saying a lot of basketball players. That's because all I can think of. But all of these people, all
God,
of these individuals had these followers. If they had the NIL in place, man,
bro,
listen,
listen, bro, because them Gonzalez twins, bro, that Dylan, whew, she's
yeah.
something serious.
So
But either way, but Mikey has 3.7 million subscribers, and Bryce Young has 226K.
you
So
see what I'm
Bryce Young
saying?
has neither one of both of them together have nowhere close to
Nowhere close to
Olivia.
what she has. So I
Mm-hmm.
think this now opens up an avenue for women who have not gotten the respect that they should after collegiate sports.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we
It
can
could
get
definitely be
into that
amazing for them.
another
Yeah,
week, but it could be for the select few. It could be good for them to take advantage of this. But yeah, I think the NIL is ultimately good for the sport.
it
It
is.
will need some tweaking, but um, we know what Coach Prom is talking about with the boosters. They need to remove that, but once they get it out the way, I think it'll be good for the sport,
It
or
definitely
for
will.
the for college in general.
And the good thing about Mikey too, and just to get my final thoughts on it, the good thing about Mikey too is that the new laws don't hinder him from being able to go to college, which is
Right.
really, really good if he chooses to go that route after he graduates next year. The only thing is that if he does go to school and that school is sponsored by a brand that's not Puma, that could cause a problem. But if he does choose to go that path, him making this money off of his NIL doesn't hinder him from being eligible to go to college, which is a really, really good thing as far as the new laws are concerned.
Yeah,
That's
that's
really,
good.
really
So
good. Yeah,
so
man.
hopefully they tweak that and get everything squared away to where the boosters can't have too much effect. I mean, that's been going on for the longest. It's
For
just been,
years, man. Yeah.
rumors. It's been
Mm-hmm.
rumored to be going on for the longest. It's just now it has a new wrapper on it
Mm-hmm.
to where they can find
Actually do
loopholes
it.
to
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Facts. 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 So you're right. They knew that they had a game on Thursday, right?
Yes.
So if he had to go through protocol, that's a 5-step, 5-day phase that you have to go through. Tua would have missed that Thursday game if he had to go through protocol. So I think they knew that game was coming up on Thursday. They didn't want to lose Tua.